Good evening. Welcome to our TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments. We're halfway into April and May will be here before we know it. So Dan wants to know, are you and your students ready for the IB exam? This is part 2. If you weren't able to catch part 1, it is still available. Yes, it's available on demand. We'll be showing you how to access that if you need to. All right. I'm Ruth. I'll be the host, the behind the scenes button pusher for tonight. We're going to be using the WebEx chat feature. So we've already had a few chats from people coming in. If you want to give that a try now, maybe chat out to everyone, your location. People have been sharing weather reports and whoo, got some extreme heat in some places, but thank you for being here. So we're going to be using that chat panel, not just to share our locations and other interesting tidbits about that, but also to share questions and comments for Dan tonight. The session is being recorded and will be available for viewing and reviewing later. If you experience any audio or video issues that you cannot resolve during the live session, just feel free to come back and watch it later. And also recap some of the information that Dan's going to be sharing. The slides are going to be available to you. So you will be getting an email with a link to how to get those documents. And that will be coming within the next couple of days. A link for the slides and a link for a certificate of attendance. There's an opportunity to share what you're learning today during tonight's webinar. All right, so Daniel is going to be tonight's presenter. Thank you, Dan, for being here again to share great information with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and get us on into the webinar.
All right. Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who has either come back for more or who is joining us for the first time. I really love seeing the eclectic distances that everybody is from where I am in South Carolina. I am a high school math teacher. I teach pre-calculus and IB Math AASL. I also have been a moderator for the IA for the last 6-7 years, which I start that actually next week. Woo, I'm so excited about that. And then I also am a paper 1 AI examiner as well. So, and I've been teaching IB classes now for 20 years, and it's honestly one of my favorite classes to teach, and I love the students who come through the IB's program. They just have a wonderful mentality when they come through the class. So it's since I started, thanks to my wonderful friend Jim Nakamoto, when he trained me way back in, I think it was 2003. I was hooked from that point on. So I teach at Christ Church Episcopal School in Greenville, South Carolina, and it's my 20th year, like I said, teaching IB, but 28th year teaching overall. So I'm slowly but surely getting to that age where it's like, okay, almost time. But my youngest still has 16 more years to go until he gets through college. So I'll be teaching for a while. Anyways. What I love about this platform is not only do we get to meet people from around the world that we normally couldn't do face-to-face, but I love seeing the questions and chats go through as I'm presenting. So what I'm going to ask of you is if you have questions, and Michelle, thank you for saying you loved having Jim as a trainer as well. So if you have any questions, any comments, if I skipped over something, we have several people, including Ruth and Jim, who are here to help us. And just kind of keep that in mind, that if I don't pick up on it, they might pick up on it. So, oh my gosh, I just love seeing that. Jim knows people from around the world, which is fantastic. So feel free to join in if you have any questions, comments. Last week, or actually a few weeks ago when we did our part 1, I had so many people help other people while I was going on with other tips and tricks for the calculator. So please, 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 just if you need to share something, definitely make sure it's to everyone, as Ruth says. All right. So just a quick little overview of what we're going to do today. So if you did not catch part one, we went through topics 1, 2, and 3, and did just tips and tricks on both the Nspire and the 84. And I got the feedback recently, and I love seeing how I showed something new to you all, which was great. And that's what I hope to accomplish, that I'm going to show you something new that you may not known, or maybe I'm refreshing your memory. So because we are coming to crunch time, I just got the information when I got information from when I'm going to start grading the paper 1 exam. And when she said the exam is May 8th, I'm like, oh my gosh, we are less than a month away from this. And I'm at crunch time with my students. We have, I think, 1 more week of just reviewing stuff. And then it's just feed them questions, kind of go over calculator stuff, just kind of make sure they're ready. So we are definitely in the crunch time for this. So what we're going to talk about, well, congratulations, Steve Spence. St. Joe's High School is right down the road from my school, so I hope you get it. So we're going to go over the basic exam structure. So for the people who are here for part 1, you've seen that before, so I'm just going to quickly go over it, and then we're going to jump right in to what is new and updated on the TI website. And Ruth and I have a very funny story from part 1 that has now been fixed, which I am happy to say. And Ruth, I don't know if you saw that. Michelle, you'll get there. Don't worry. It's almost done. It's almost done. And then we'll go right into the tricks. Now, what I try to do is I try to show you something with the Nspire, and then I try to duplicate it with the 84, so we bounce back and forth. So you kind of know how to do it on both platforms. Now, there's a few different keystrokes and functionality with the stuff we're going to talk about in topic 4 and 5, but it's basically on both platforms. So everything we do on the Nspire, or almost everything we do on the Nspire, can be done on the 84. Now, there's a couple little differences, but we'll see what we can do to make it work if you're an 84 user. And then, if there's time, because the part 1 we went right up to the wire when I was going over stuff for topics 1, 2. We barely got into topic 3. So I'm going to try to get through the topics and then maybe even look at some sample questions that are on the TI website. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and just quickly look at the basic exam structure. So here is just a breakdown of the standard level, higher level exams. Of course, the standard level has 2 papers, 1 and 2, which are 40% of their overall IB grade. And you'll notice that they've reduced the number of marks for the exams, but they kept the amount of time the same. So they gave students a little bit of a break. They still will stress out, as all students do, but they kind of pulled back on that a little bit. And of course, for the AI courses, calculator is used on everything, paper 1, 2, and paper 3 for higher level. But for the AA courses, papers 2 and 3, okay, you get your calculator allowed. And that's broken down a little bit differently with the higher level side of things. So when they used to get 120 marks for 2 hours, now they get 110 marks for 2 hours. And then paper 3 is its own beast. And I would always love to hear from teachers to see what they say about paper 3 and the new design of it, because some of those questions are very interesting. You got 2 very extended questions for that are 55 marks, which is kind of crazy. So if anybody would like to share, I'm going to put my email address up at the end of this webinar. So if you ever want to provide feedback, ask questions, clarifications, just send me a message and I'll be happy to chat with you. And I'm pretty good at getting back to you right away. So just feel free. I'll put that up at the end for everybody. All right. So what we've been working on over the last few years is to build up the TI website. So it includes information about IB. So we didn't partner with IB for this. What we did is we took our activities that were already on the TI website and modified them to fit the IB curriculum. And then over the last 2 years, I've been creating new activities so that they match what we do in IB. So you'll see different types. You'll see brand new activities, or you'll see updated activities, and they all kind of fit the mold of the type of questions that IB asks and the real world applications that IB wants you to use. And then also with respect to every activity that's on there, there is an IB question written for it. So you got multiple ways to kind of prepare using the activity plus the IB questions to kind of help you along. Yes. Oh, thank you, Jasmine, for saying that. Don't forget, sometimes going through the My IB website might be a little bit tough to follow along, but please, please, please go through that. They have some good samples with both your IAs and your paper 1, 2, and 3 questions. So please go to that site. So I just got a question about are the students penalized if they don't answer the questions? Honestly, the penalization is you don't earn any marks for that question. So when students, yeah, thank you, Michelle, for saying that. So if it's worth 3 marks and they don't do it, they don't gain any marks from that. So that's their penalty. If they can try to show any type of work or any type of progress in the problem, there's a chance that they could get some points, but they're technically, if they leave it blank, they just don't earn those points. So they don't get extra points taken away, but they don't earn those points. But thank you. Keep those questions coming. I'll try to answer them as they come along. So I'm going to share my desktop real quick. All right. So what we see here is the TI website. So the funny story from part 1, right at the beginning, so it was right around, actually, even before this, I went to this website to show everybody what we've been working on. And when I clicked on activities, it wasn't, there, which is kind of scary. So when let's do this, education. So, but when I went to the education technology website that talked about Innovator, it had resources up there, and IB resources was there. So it was really weird. It used to be, if you click on Texas Instruments, the education.ti.com, and clicked on activities, you would get, some sort of IB information there. Now, if you go to all classroom activities, they put it way down at the bottom, okay, for resources for IB mathematics. Now, Ruth and I did not know that they had switched it on us. And so for a couple minutes, which felt like an eternity, we couldn't find this information. So, and I talked to TI the next day, and they explained they're kind of updating things, and they haven't finished it yet. But once we click on that, we get to the TI IB website. So what we were trying to do is create activities for you all to use in your class that were associated also with IB style questions. So if you were to click on either one of these, let's just go on applications and interpretation. All right, what you will see are, all the activities that we have that are, the dark blue is for the 84 and the light blue, once I get to it, these are all your Nspire activities. So what we're doing is creating the same activity for both platforms. So I can pick, the 84, and it's going to show me all the 84. All right, you'll see, this new and updated one that was just updated recently, or actually it was just created recently by myself. It is in the 84, but if I were to click on the Nspire, it's also there. So we have the same activity for both platforms. So just kind of keep that in mind if you are interested in these activities. So if we were to click on that activity, you'll notice that we have, a little overview of it. They give you a quick little picture of what's going on in there. They have a zip folder for all of the documents, but then you have both a PDF and a Word document for each of the files, okay? So you have the option of just printing out the PDF. You have, of course, your teacher notes to kind of help you through the process. And then you also have an IB style question. But what I love about TI is it loves to share. So please, open up the doc. So you'll see that we have the student activity. If I were to open that, okay, just to kind of give you a quick little peek at it. So you have the ability to say, okay, I like this activity, but I would change a few things about it, and go ahead and do that. Change what you want about it, do what you will with it. It's there at your disposal for you to use. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to give you options. And the same thing that goes with the IB question that is attached with it. Okay, so I tried to create in the style of IB a question that will, show your students something that they might see on the exam. So we have the three-parter for this, this prism, and then along with that comes the mark scheme. And let's say you like this design of this question, go ahead and change the numbers. All right, so if you change these numbers, then you can do that question, but multiple times. So please use that information. If you ever, if you ever see anything that might be a little bit off, please share with me, because I've seen mistakes there, because sometimes you just get a little stir crazy when you're doing these problems. But honestly, that graph, somebody just asked, what software I use. I created this on a Word document. So I just drew that, by inserting pictures and lines and stuff like that. So it was a little bit annoying, but I did definitely have fun kind of doing that. So please, use these, as much as you can. I would love to help you in any way possible. All right. So that was, and one other thing I'd like to show you with respect to the TI website. So yes, it has all these activities. So we got, just use any activity we have. We update things or put new activities in about 10 to 12 every 6 months. So we're trying to add more and more for you to use throughout the year. My goal is to eventually get something on every topic, but that of course will take some time. But the other thing that's on the TI website, this is what Ruth was talking about. Let's say that you missed our part 1. You can click on the on demand, all right, webinars. And here we go. Our last one was, are you ready for students part 1? So you can click on that, listen to me, fast forward to the stuff where I get to talky. But also you'll see what we've been doing over the last couple years. The last 2 years, we'd actually have a webinar every month talking about the different topics and what TI has been doing with it. So there's a lot of IB stuff that we're trying to put together for you all. So please use what you can. Okay. So let me just check the chat. I just want to make sure I didn't see any. Oh, I love that. So yes, please collaborate. So yes, I love all these comments, please. And I love sharing with everybody. So please keep that up. That is awesome. Awesome. All right. So back, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. All right. So what are we going to look at tips and tricks wise with respect to the Inspire and the 84? All right. So what I've done here is just kind of given a quick list of the Inspire and 84 things that you may know that are out there, or maybe you don't know, because when we did part 1, many of you with the 84 didn't know there was an app that can solve simultaneous equations, or did the polynomial roots. And I thought that was pretty cool that I can show that to you. And honestly, a year or 2 ago, I didn't know that was there. So I'm always learning new things as well. So please, if you ever have any questions about how to use any of these, or if you forget how to use them, or if there's any more things I can help you with, just send me an email. All right, so we're going to start with topic 4 and just kind of look at the probability on the menu and math buttons on our calculators. So first I'm going to take a look at the 84. So I'm going to share again. I just got done doing that. All right, so looking at the Nspire. Oh, sorry about that. That is my warm-up that I had with my pre-cal class today. So let's get a new document here. All right, so just if we went to a calculator page and look at the menu button, and then, you know, we're going to look at, I think it was stats first. Yes. So if we actually is looking at, stats. So if we look at the stat calculations, okay, or did I do probability? No, I can't remember. See, this is what happens when you turn 50. Your brain starts to kind of go a little crazy. And I apologize for that. So yes, we're going to do probability first. All right, so looking at the probability, so if I go to my menu button on the Nspire, I have 5 different options here. Now, in your AA and AI courses, you know, sometimes you'll, you know, see stuff on the calculator that might be useful, but sometimes not. There's so much on these calculators that you really want to highlight the stuff that is the most useful, the most time efficient for your students. So it's rare that you see something with a factorial. Now, I know when you do binomial expansion, you can do factorials in combination with combinations. But again, you're rarely going to have to use a factorial button. Permutations, don't even have to worry about that. Combinations, though, is definitely, I was actually just doing some sample problems with my SL class yesterday, and one of them was a combination. So definitely kind of knowing how to use the combination feature on the calculator, the NCR. So it gives you this situation. Please remember that, you know, it's going to be the n value, which is the degree of the binomial, plus the, you know, one less than the term you're looking for, or the y-axis, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of different ways to describe the two. But just knowing how to, you know, do your NCR capable function, 7, you know, C2 on that. And same thing on the 84. All right, if we go to the math button and then probability, we do have NCR there, but this one's a little different. This one actually, to me, looks a little bit nicer. You have the little boxes, they're little subscript boxes that you can do your 7C2, all right, and get that if need be, okay? And then, you know, we have other capabilities. So that was just a quick little combination. But really, the big button that you're going to be using with probability usually is the distributions button on the Nspire. So there you're going to be dealing with the normal CDF and inverse normal buttons. Those are the most common that I've used in my classes. And then, of course, down toward the bottom here, you're also going to get the binomial PDF and CDF buttons there. So I mean, honestly, those 4 are the ones that I use most under the distributions in my class. Okay, and what I love about the calculators nowadays is they guide you through what you're supposed to type in. So there's not a lot of second guessing about what goes into each box. So if you're looking at just the normal CDF, all right, when you click on that, you know that they're going to be a lower and upper bound. And then either the z-score, mean and standard deviation, or whatever your mean and standard deviation might be given. So you don't really have to second guess. And one thing I just want to point out to you, if you did not know this, so this is just on the Nspire, you'll notice I have the infinity symbol here. So that's because I have the CAS calculator, and the infinity is allowed on that calculator. But when your kids take the exam, the CAS functions will be turned off. So they will not be able to put like a negative infinity or a positive infinity. They'll just have to put in, I think the default is using scientific notation 9E99. So they'll put that in there. So this would be a -9, you know, E99 for that. So they'll see that once, so you won't see the infinity. So if you have the non-CAS calculator for the Nspire, you'll see that instead of the Infinity for that one. But I just love how the box is set up so you know what do you put in the lower bound, what do you put in the upper bound, and then your mean and standard deviation. So it's really self-explanatory for that. Same thing with the 84. If you go to where it says distribution, which is above the vars key, so you'd have to hit second vars. All right, and then you'll notice you have your normal CDF as number 2 for that one. And then again, here, and this is the example. So they have a -1 E99. All right, so there's your lower and upper bound, but everything is basically the same. The only thing that's different is they don't have the fancy boxes. It's very self-explanatory. It used to be where you had to remember what the order was when you kind of typed it in your calculator. But now it's all kind of set up for you in this nice fashion, so you don't have to actually worry about any of that. Okay, so hopefully that is understandable there. So what I try to tell my students when they're doing either the normal CDF or the inverse normal is, again, know exactly what you need to type in. Okay, please pay attention to the words that are in the problem, the more than, the at least, the less than, so you know what your lower and upper bounds are for that. And if they don't know the mean and the standard deviation, you can also just type, you can leave it as 0 and 1 for the standardized form. And again, you don't even have to put that, -9 or -1 there. Doing, E99 is perfectly acceptable as well. Okay. So just remember that. And to be honest with you, my students ask, how big does the number have to be since, infinity was there as the default? How big does the number have to be to put in there? Let's just say if you were unsure. And I have my students type in 10,000. That seemed to work every time for them. So I would pick an arbitrary large number to put in there, and you won't see any real difference to the solutions for that. So one thing that my students struggle with, oh, cool. So I'm just reading some questions here. Okay, so I was just actually about to talk about this. So Christina asked about the binomial PDF and CDF. Okay, when to use those? What's the difference? With that, and I just had students do a problem on this just yesterday because we're kind of in the last topic of review, because the way I teach my class is there's only 2 topics that are brand new to them, which is topic 4 and 5. So prob and stats and calculus. Everything else has been taught before. So we always front load the new stuff. So we do that. And then we end with topics 1, 2, and 3, just kind of highlighting them, reviewing them, teaching them how IB asks those types of questions. And so we're just finishing that up right now. But since we did prob and stats in the first semester, my students are now forgetting, when do I use normal CDF or inverse normal, and when do I use the binomial CDF versus PDF? And so if you're ever going to use the normal, okay, it should be pretty obvious, but you need to see the word normal, okay, in the problem. So that is a definite. So please make sure that you see the word normal. And teach your students or show your students or tell your students that to earn some partial credit, even if they get it wrong, to do a quick little sketch of the normal distribution curve. So draw the little bell curve, and then where do you think the shading should be? Is it before the mean? Is it after the mean? Is it containing the mean? Okay, so you can earn credit by drawing the correct shading and drawing the correct normal distribution. So please be aware of that. Now with the PDF, or excuse me, with the binomial, you always have to have yourself or your students ask, how many possibilities are there? Okay, so the question that I just had my students answer it was rolling dice, and it was rolling the number 6. And so they gave the probability of rolling a number 6 was 7/10. So they were asking them questions about what's, if you wanted to get at least 3 6s, okay, if you rolled your dice or die 5 times, okay, is that a binomial distribution? Well, think about what are the possibilities. If they're just asking about 6s, it is either they're going to get a 6 or they're not going to get a 6. So there's really only 2 possibilities. So that's the first thing that students have to remember, is that you have 2 possibilities for your answer. So there's your binomial distribution situation. Then the question is it a PDF or is it CDF? So if they ask for, and you got to pay attention to these words of at least 3 or at most 3 or less than 3 or greater than 3. So whenever you throw those words in of at most, at least, less than, greater than, that sort of thing, that's going to be the CDF situation. But if they ask, so the other part of the question was, what's the probability of rolling 2 6s in the first 4 rolls? All right, so you're just specifically saying this number, so exactly 2 6s in the 4 rolls. That's the PDF situation, because it's not 1 or 2, it's not 0, 1, or 2, it's just 2. So when you're looking for that one possibility of just 2 6s, that's when you're going to use the PDF for that. But you can also use the PDF, and I've had students do this. So they actually chose to do the PDF instead of the CDF, because if you're trying to find the possibility of rolling at most 3 6s, I had students find the PDF of 0 6s, of 1 6, of 2 6, of 3 6s, and then add those all together. Or I've had them find 4 6s, 5 6s, and then subtract that, from 1 to get that answer. So there's a couple of different ways you can use that. But again, it's kind of up to how you show your students and what they're most comfortable with. I definitely think that using the CDF is probably easier and quicker, less chance of mistake. But again, they have options for that. I know and honestly, I love the comments. Please keep sharing. But thank you for all that. And then again, when you click on either in the Nspire or the 84, when you go to your distributions and you go to your binomial, let's say PDF, okay, here you have exactly what you need. You need how many number of trials. In my case, it was how many times you're going to roll the die. And then what's the probability of getting the 6? That's my success. And then how many do I want? Okay, I wanted 2. All right, so that would be that, and you fill everything in. Same thing with the 84. So if I go to my second vars for the distribution, all right, my binomial PDF, okay, same thing. How many trials? What's your probability of success? And then what is the number that you want, the X value? So self-explanatory, it's there for you. So your kids hopefully don't have to stress out too much when using the calculator for that. All right. So what else can we use here with that? So let's see where we're at here. Okay. So we talked about combinations, distributions. Awesome. Wonderful. For those higher level people, okay, please remember that you also have information on the Poisson distribution. So, and again, not everybody teaches the higher level, especially the AI course. But if you're going to the second VARS, you have your Poisson PDF and CDF for your use. But again, remember that you have, the template. Just fill in the information that you need. All right, so you don't have to guess. They'll tell you the mean or the X value for the Poisson for that. And that same thing with the Nspire. All right, so if we clear out of that, going to menu, probability distribution. Now, also, just in case you weren't aware, on the Nspire, probability has its distribution section, but also if you go to statistics, it has its distribution section. So it's in both of them, in case you were wondering. And then the Poisson is down here at the bottom as well. Okay, and you could type in the same information. Now, of course, they use the lambda for that mean, so just so you're aware of that. All right. So that was that. So looking at now some statistical information, we have one of my students, once they figure all this stuff out, they love just going into the calculator, because when you're dealing with statistics on the IB exam, you really are, it's going to be calculator based. So just remember that. And the students, that last week before the exam, make sure you're hitting home where they can find this stuff and how quickly they can get to it, because just one of the problems that we were doing in my class was a stats problem where they have X and Y data that they have to input. And for them to know what to do with that information quickly it's such a huge time saver. So when you're dealing with, statistics, don't forget that on the Nspire, you're going to add, a list and spreadsheet page to first input the data. Okay, so that's step number one, to make sure on the Nspire that you're actually naming the columns. Okay, so keep that information there. All right, so, and I'm always very simple. I just do my X and Y whenever possible. Okay, so do that. I'm going to be very creative here with my numbers. And then once you have your data in there, there's two things you can do with that data on the Nspire. If you want to do all your calculations right here, all right, you can. Or if you want to go back to a calculator page, you can do that as well. So what are the benefits of doing it either on the calculator page or on the spreadsheet? Well, I think the benefit of doing it on the calculator page is it's a visual thing. Okay. So if I were to go to menu, statistics, and do stats calculations, I can do one variable, two variable, linear regression. I can use any one of those and have them pop up on my calculator screen. So if I just do two variable statistics, I got my X list is X, my Y list is Y, and then, I'm going to hit enter, and there's all my information. Okay. So I have all that there. So I think it's a clarity thing with all the information that's done there. So that's why I like to see it on the calculator page. But if you go to your list and spreadsheets page and do the same exact thing, so if you hit menu, statistics, step calculations, two variable statistics, where are you getting your X list? And we'll just call that X. Your Y list is just your Y. And then we are going to have our results in the D column. So if we hit OK, so does anybody know, why it would be beneficial to have it here? I'm looking at, what if anybody knows that answer? Anybody? And this is something that I honestly just learned last year, which is crazy. Again, I learn new stuff all the time. So the reason it's beneficial to do it on the list and spreadsheet is that you can actually change the data here, and these statistics change according to how you change your data. So if you needed to add some data or you needed to change some of these numbers, okay, basically the statistics will change with it. Okay, but if it's just done on the calculator page, the statistics won't change. You'd have to repeat that if you change your data. So I thought that's a nice little feature, that if you change the data here, then the information over here changes, which is cool. So just kind of keep that in mind if you have the Nspire. Now, if you have the 84, you're going to, of course, go to the stat and then edit page. And this is where you're going to type in your data, L1, L2, whatever you want to call those. You don't have to change the names. But then when you go to your home screen, this is when you're going to do your stat and then calc. And then this is where you get your 1, 2 variable stats and so on, okay, for that. And then I saw somebody earlier mention about have your diagnostics on. So why do we want our diagnostics on? Okay, so what information do they give us if our diagnostics are on compared to when they don't? And thank you, Michelle. It's that correlation coefficient that we want to see, or the correlation or the coefficient of determination, the R squared as well. So, and where do we find that diagnostic on the 84? All right, you'll notice that your stat diagnostics down here at the bottom. Okay, so down here where it says stat diagnostics, right now it's off. We can kind of turn it on. So now we'll get all those stats because they might ask us about the R value when we're typing in our oh, I love this too. I'm just noticing up at the top, we have R squared, that's wonderful. So turn those on so you can get those R values there. And on the Nspire, if you want to do the same thing, so if we do our, let's see, data, where was that? That's, I know I thought I saw it. I'll have to. Got to remember where to turn that on for the, for that one. Oh, it's on the, I would have to add, that's right. So I'd have to go to a data and statistics page. And when I kind of do the actions here, not the actions, when I analyze, no, settings, that's what it was. See, I knew I'd find it eventually. So the settings, the data and statistics, this is where your diagnostics, the default is for it to be on. So you would really have to physically turn it off if you're going to do it there. All right. So one thing that, yes. Okay. That is correct. Who said that? Christina. You are correct there. One thing I wanted to mention that my students did recently with the stats problem that I was just kind of talking about. So in this information where we have the, X and Y, so they asked the question now, and this is in the updated curriculum over the last few years, where instead of asking for a line of best fit for Y equals, your AX plus B, they are now also saying in terms of, Y. So they're going to say X equals AY plus B. So, and all that really means is when you're doing your linear regression, you just have to swap the X and Y columns. So instead of saying, L1 goes with my X's and L2 goes with my Y's, you just have to flip those and do L2, L1, and it'll find that equation for us. So just kind of keep that in mind that the students can type those into the first two columns as an X and a Y, but sometimes they just might have to flip it based on what the question is asking. So if it's either a Y equals MX, that's just normal, L1, L2, or X equals, a Y, we just flip that and do L2, L1. And so once my students figured that out, and I was like, oh, that's easy. That's all I have to do. So it really doesn't change too much, but kind of keep that in mind for that. All right. So where are we at here? We're going pretty fast here with all this stuff. One last thing for the statistics because I wanted to do some calculus stuff real quick as we're going through. With respect to the stat tests, there's, especially in the AI courses, so please be aware of that, is you have the tests, the goodness of fit test, the test for independence. You have, many different tests now that you are supposed to know and do. I just remember I was in Australia around November, and one of the paper 3 questions for the higher level AI from last year was a series of every single test that the students had to know for that class. So for that 55, so there are 2 questions for the 55 pointer. Question 1 was just every test that they had to do, which was kind of crazy. And we had a wonderful discussion about that question there, which if you can ever get together with these IB math teachers and talk about stuff like that, it is fantastic. So what I'm talking about with the tests. So if I'm just going to go back to my calculator page, but if I go to my menu and then my statistics, what I'm going to go to are your stat tests. And the different types of tests that students now have to know, especially for the AI course, you're talking about, the t-test, the goodness of fit test, the test for the two-way test. Then you're also going ahead and, well, I think that's all I was talking about here. But students in that one question for that higher level paper had to do all those tests, which was kind of crazy. And they have to explain. But here was the thing. You had to do a lot of explaining with it, so you could partially use your calculator, but a lot of it depended on their knowledge of those tests and what those tests were trying to show. So the students really had to pay attention and know what each of those tests does. But you can find all those under the stat tests for the statistics menu. And the same thing with the 84. If we go to the stat and then the tests, we'll see all those same tests right there. So we got all those tests available. So again, I'm sure you all have done a fabulous job, showing your students how to do all this stuff. But again, that last week before the exam, you really need to pound home where to find this stuff, how to type stuff in to help them for the exam. Okay. So having said all that, so let's see how the chat's going. All right. Can you draw? So let's see. Can you draw the tangent line and get the equation on the Inspire like you can with the 84? With respect to calculus, all right, I love some of the calculus features on the Inspire. Unfortunately, it's not as it's not as plentiful as the so the 84 isn't as plentiful as the Inspire, but there's still a lot of equal stuff on both that you can accomplish. That I'd quickly like to show you. And one thing on both the 84 and the Inspire, I was going over a question with my students about, because you got to remember that on the IB exam, even though the CAS version of the Inspire is so helpful and does so many great calculus things, a lot of that stuff is going to be turned off. Pretty much all the CAS functions are gone. So you're basically trying to show students how to do things on the calculator, but you're very restrictive to the non-CAS Inspire or the 84. All right, so what we need to do is what is available to us. So if I go to my menu and then the calculus button, all right, so what we will pretty much see on the 84 and the Inspire is you have the derivative at a point, okay? You have the definite integral, and then you have the function, min, and max, okay? Which is, kind of okay. Well, that was nice. So I had someone comment, if you didn't see, Michelle commented that she turns the CAS off. And honestly, I do something similar. I really don't reference the the stuff on the CAS at all. So I always point them toward, doing the derivative at a point instead of the derivative. And I rarely get any of my students who ask, well, what if I use this function? So they just kind of follow my lead and kind of go with that. But remember, when you're doing either on the 84 or the Inspire, when you're doing derivative at a point, here you're dealing with, you got the boxes that kind of say, okay, so we're using an X variable, we have the value. Here's the thing that I love, is when you click on this, you don't have the nth derivative. So if we can cover that part up, that's a CAS thing. But you have the option for first and second derivative at a point. So the problem that we were doing in class was, you had your particle displacement function, and it said, what is the acceleration at whatever this given time is. And so what the students had to do is they either had to sit there and take the derivative, and then plug in that time value into the second derivative, or they could just use this function. They could plug in the original function, okay? And the calculator will take the second derivative and then plug in whatever value they need to, okay? Which I think is fantastic, because at first my students were saying, well, they only thought that it does it to the first derivative. So they thought they had to find the derivative by hand and then use this function, this derivative at a point. But you have the ability to do two derivatives, which is just fantastic. And once I showed them that, their eyes were like, oh, great. That makes my life so much easier, because I can't tell you, I mean, the problem that they had was not only derivative of trig functions, but you had to do the product rule twice, and the students were just forgetting all that stuff because this is the first thing we do in the school year. We're now, 3 weeks away from the exam, and they're forgetting all this stuff. So this was definitely a nice breath of fresh air for that. Now with the 84, when we do that function, so we're going to do the math button and then do number 8, which is the nth derivative. So here we can type in our variables, okay, and then what our value is. All right, so so there you have the 84's version of that. So just kind of be aware of both scenarios for the 84 and the Nspire. And then of course we also have if you do the math and then you have the finite integral. So same thing. So you can do your finite integral. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Now, is there a graphing capability with these as well? So if we were on a graph, we can do second trace, and you'll notice that we also have the derivative at a point, which is number 6, and then we have the definite integral. So the area between the curve and the x-axis. So we can kind of do that on the 84. And one thing that, and this unfortunately is kind of highlights the Nspire a little bit better. So yes, we can still do the, the finite integral. So we can do that just like the 84. And don't forget, one of my favorite buttons on this calculator for those Nspire users is the math template button. So we have all these, important math templates that can be used. Now, a couple of these, like the limits and the indefinite integral, are kind of shut off, but everything else is kind of a template for you to use, for your students to use. So we got our definite integral, we got our first and second derivative that we can use. We can't do the nth. Well, actually, no, I think that is available for the non-CAS version. But I like that math template button. But when you go to the graph page for this calculator, when we go to menu and then analyze graph, you'll see that we have some things that unfortunately aren't on the 84. You'll see that we have inflection points. Okay, so you can find a point of inflection. You also have the derivative at a point, the integral just like the 84, but then you also have a cool function called the bounded area. So you can get the area between two curves. Now, you don't see a whole lot of those on the exam, especially at the SL level. So, but I just like to point that out, that you can do quick little area between two curves on the Nspire like that. All right, we are unfortunately kind of running out of time here, so I'm going to take a look at what we had left for this calculating graph, points of inflection. But we got all those. Can you find the tangent line on the Nspire? So for that, just going back to my screen here. 4, and then number 9. T. All right, so basically if we, so let's see. So let me share this again so we can show you real quick. All right, so sorry about that. Share this one more time. All right, so on your Nspire, if we go to menu and then calculus and then the tangent line, okay, you get to this point, but then you ask yourself, well, what do I type in, okay, for that? So the question is, how can we do that? And I don't know, to be honest with you, I'll have to check that on the non-CAS version. Unfortunately, I don't have that right in front of me. But for this one, if you ever don't know what to type in, don't forget there's a wonderful feature in the catalog that if you go to where it says tangent line, it tells you what to kind of put in there. You put in the expression, the variable that you're using, and then the value at that variable. So, you know, there we have that. So you would type in, you know, at the tangent line, whatever your expression is, comma, the variable you're using, and then typing in your X value for that. Now, again, I don't know if that, since your answer is going to contain a variable in it, I have a feeling that that is not available to you on the exam, but I can double check that. I haven't ever used that with my students, but I'll double check to see if that is true or false for that one. But and don't forget that when you're right before your exam, because my wonderful, you know, IB coordinator, she's very frantic on exam day, especially since it's not her wheelhouse with the math. So she is running around trying to find me to try to set up all the calculators. So don't forget, they give you a list in your teacher support materials for what functions to be turned on and off with respect to the Nspire. 84s are easy, just to reset that and clear your data, clear your info. There's also a code you can type in for the for the Nspire. That's the IB test mode. So it turns off what's need to be turned off for that. But you know, just kind of closing things out here. Well, thank you for that, Michelle. I love it when, so my students will be very happy to hear that the 84 outperforms the Nspire. We get into several arguments every year about which is better. And so thank you for answering the questions. Yes, you do print your own formula packets. Make sure they're clean, because I know at the beginning of the year I give my students a formula packet, but of course they write in them all the time. So yes, they need clean formula packets for the exam. Now my IB coordinator, she does that, thankfully, but you should double check with them just to make sure if you have to do it or if they get it ready for you. Yes, it needs to be clean for both days. So please remember that. Okay. Well, we're at 8:57. This hour just flies by so quick. I hope I gave you some information that could be useful using the calculator for the exams. We do have a few weeks left before. Please, please, please. I'm going to put in my email address. Please email me if you have any questions, if you want to share anything. Oh, I would love to, honestly. And if you, and whoever just said that, John, did you just say that? No, not John. Sorry, you just said nice things. So Christina, if you would like to do that, I would love, you know, to have one webinar dedicated to a part 3 in both the AA and the AI. So if you're interested in that, or if anybody else is interested in that, I would love to sit down and do a sample part 3 for both of those. So if that's okay with you, I'm okay with that too. I'll talk to TI about that. Not paper 3, but part 3. I will definitely do that. Okay. Oh, a part. I see what you mean. Yes. All right. So, but I would like to do both. Anyways, so yes, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Ruth so she can chat with you here.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody. Remember, the chat is still active for questions and comments until we close out for this session. Okay, and we'll keep that going for a little bit. The chat is there. There's going to be a link in email to you to get the slides that Daniel shared. So look for that in an upcoming email. And certificate of attendance. I do have that updated link. I'll put that in the chat right now. This will be for your certificate of attendance for tonight. And what else do we have? I think we have a drawing coming up.
Who's the winner?
Who's the winner? Do I even have a slide for the drawing? I don't know where that slide went, so we don't need a slide. The winner is, and I used my random integer generator on an 84 tonight. Last time I used my Inspire, I think. And the winner is Ashley Colley. Ashley Colley.
Congrats, Ashley.
Congratulations, Ashley. I don't think I had information from the registration where Ashley's from, but congratulations, Ashley. Woohoo! All right. So we have shared the link for the certificate of attendance. Daniel has shared his email in the chat. Remember, saving the chat is an option. That's a feature that you can do as you exit. You might have some limitations depending on the device that you're viewing on, but there you go. You can save the chat. Lots of useful information there. And as Dan suggested, do we need a part 3? If we need a part 3, maybe somebody else needs to hear from you. You registered somewhere, 1-800-TI-CARES or something like that might be able to hook you up with an avenue for that. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, this is recorded. You'll get an email with a link to the recording, a link to the slides, and a link to a certificate of attendance. I'm out. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you again soon.